Beyond 3D.
Saturday evenings in and around the peninsula. Welcome to this week's edition of Beyond 3D. Matt and Clint sitting here in the Bendigo Bank Studio, Studio 2 at RWP 98.7, 98.3 on your FM dial. Clint, how are you?
Good evening, Matthew.
You well?
No.
No?
No, I'm fighting it.
You're fighting what?
It.
What is it?
That's a Faith No More song.
Okay.
No.
You're right, that is. Oh, now that you mention it.
No. I'm fighting the virus.
Oh, the virus. Show's over. I'm going home.
No, I'm fighting the virus. It's been one of those Saturdays I've just been putting my feet up and relaxing.
You need that medicine known as Scotch.
Oh, I've actually been on the Grey Goose, to be honest with you.
The Grey Goose? Okay.
Been on the Grey Goose.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the Grey Goose, I wouldn't be here tonight. So God bless it.
That's the way. You need a little something to soothe the nerves, as they say. But anyway, it's been an interesting week outside of viruses, hasn't it?
Last week, what did you think of last week's show?
Very nice.
It was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, Linda Moulton Howe is just one of those excellent journalists and has been around for a very, very long time, doing what she does, and she does her research quite thoroughly.
She is at the pinnacle of her game at the moment.
Yep. So you know what that means. Anyway,
it means she knows more than what she talks about half the time.
Oh, heck yeah. They're always into that.
If you think about it, these people do the talk circuit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's her bread and butter. Nobody pays her a regular 9-to-5 job. That's how she...
Yeah, exactly.
She survives. Mm-hmm. So she's not going to be forthcoming with everything every time she gets up to talk. She's going to dribble it out as well.
Make it last. Make it last. But yes, it's been a fun-filled week. To say the least. It has been a lot of Northern Hemisphere weather. And isn't it interesting how all the storms start coming in when they turn HARRP back on?
Isn't it interesting that all the storms have hit America?
Oh, love it, don't you?
Soon as the bloatus decided to pull out of the Paris climate.
45? Yes, exactly.
When he decided to pull out and he went, no longer do we wish to be part of the Paris Climate Accord.
The Accords, yes. Yeah. So, oh well.
And then all of a sudden he gets hit by a giant hurricane.
Yeah, well, they were talking about the fact that one of his El Jefe's homes in St. Martin, I think, in the Caribbean, more than likely was wiped. The island of Barbuda, 90% wiped.
Surely HARRP can redirect it towards Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, well, we'll see what happens. we'll see what happens with that. It's about to hit there now, so we'll take a look and see what's happening as far as the satellites and the weather's concerned.
I saw on the Stephen Colbert show this week.
Yep.
They played a clip of Trump at the disaster zone. Mm-hmm. And his final words as he gave a speech saying, everybody, you've all done a wonderful job. His last words were, have a good time, everybody. Mm-hmm. These people are standing in gut-deep water, and he's looked at them and gone, have a good time, everybody. What an idiot.
He's not an idiot. He doesn't know. This is the whole thing. He doesn't get it, and that's the problem. But ultimately, he will. He ultimately will.
I did put on Facebook those awesome people that were going around in boats just rescuing stray animals.
Yep.
I did that this week.
Yeah. A lot of people were doing that down there. And I think what tends to happen when you have a situation like that, no matter where it is in the world, people actually come together and try their best to help each other through that situation because it's the way it has to be. It's humanity.
It's ingrained in your human nature.
Yeah, that's what's supposed to happen.
And if you don't have that in your DNA, you're not human.
There's something wrong.
There's something wrong with you.
Bing, bing, bong, bong, total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, so hopefully the Caribbean, interesting, my home island, St. Kitts, was spared. I don't know how, but it kind of did a quick northwesterly turn before it hit St. Kitts Nevis and headed towards the other places. So very interesting what's been going on there.
HARRP.
There was a video out and it showed with Harvey going over Texas how there was a flash of light, almost like an explosion of some kind, and all of a sudden the clouds started to gather and it really gathered some steam.
Because some dude sitting at HARRP with a joystick just moving it across the country.
Yeah, exactly. Going this way, going that
hurricane
way.
randomly across the country.
And now, so we have the new one, Irma, coming through.
Doesn't that sound insane? when I say that.
Well,
I mean, I'm super exaggerating when I say there's a guy in a room somewhere with a joystick guiding a hurricane across the country, but it's HARRP. It's HARRP. It is what it is.
It's as good a theory as anything.
It is what it is. No, well, it's not so much a theory. There's been plenty of documentation.
Well, look, weather control that's what it does. It's a scientific fact.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. It's just a matter of the fact that, quite frankly, if it brings the world together and gets people thinking along a different tack, for lack of a better term, it's a good thing in a sense. The waters will recede, buildings can be rebuilt, and hopefully that will bring people closer together and let them know, look, even though you do all your funky things out there, the Earth can outfunk you on the best of days.
James Bartley, Beyond 3D's James Bartley, posted on Facebook this week a document entitled Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. And this document is a research paper that was presented to the Air Force by a colonel, 2 lieutenant colonels, and 4 majors.
No idea.
Blind Bambi on that one.
Ghost in the Machine again. Here we go.
Here we go.
All kinds of stuff going on. But
why is it always Saturday nights?
Because
I don't hear, nobody else in the station has these kooky problems.
The ghosts come out on Saturday night, so what are you going to do? They get in there and they start messing around with wiring. But no, it's weather control. I believe in that. It makes sense, in a sense, if you have an area that is drought affected and you can actually bring relief, it can be used for positive influence. However, it can also be used for nefarious purposes, and that can lead to a lot of destruction. But we will find out soon enough. Now, there's another little news story that's out right now that we have to deal with, and we will hopefully not have to deal with too much of it. Kim Jong-un is at it again. Yes, he's at it again. And they're about to launch, if they haven't done it yet, they're about to launch another ICBM.
I thought Yes, he did just
release
a
new one.
New one.
Yeah, new one.
What do you think he's up to?
Quite frankly, he wants the other bullies on the playground to finally recognize him as a bully.
Yes, but China...
They don't want him in the bully club, but he wants in. He wants in. That's all there is to it.
The thing is,
yeah,
if he takes the stance of doing a preemptive strike of some kind, he won't have China's support. If he plays the victim and gets pressured to cease his nuclear program, China will support him. There's many different trade negotiations that China is in and out with North Korea. So it all depends on who the attacker is and who's the defender. Depends on whether or not China's in or out when it comes to supporting North Korea.
I don't trust China's agenda. In any way, shape, or form.
They do own most of our food production.
Well, I don't trust
in this country.
Well, the fact of the matter is, that's why I've always said over the last decade that Australia really needs to look at the relationship they have with China, and they need to make sure that it's to their benefit. And that does not mean digging holes and selling everything you have to them.
Why do you think it is that Prime Minister No Balls Turnbull doesn't turn this country into the food belt to feed the world? It's quite possible. This country could feed the entire world with all the fertile land that we have.
It could supply a lot of the energy needs as well.
Absolutely it could.
Therefore, why not? I don't know.
I don't rate him as a prime minister, only because I haven't yet seen him actually do anything.
Well, he's good at hiding, but no, it's just a matter of, it's a different way of thinking. It's certain people are in positions of authority, and they are just trying. The country here is, how many people actually work in government? Out of the 10% of the population?
Yeah, I'd say that.
Without even trying very hard, if not more?
Maybe 10%.
Based on that fact, you have a bureaucracy.
Hang on, not government as in political government, but also down to local councils.
Down to local councils.
Yeah. Okay.
So what you have is a situation where a lot of people are employed by this bureaucracy, and a lot of people rely on that bureaucracy. The fact is, this government has a bureaucracy that's set up for a population of somewhere between 50 and 75 million people, and they only have 24 million people. So we bear the brunt of that. We have to deal with it. We have to live with it. That is just the way of the world.
We have the marriage plebiscite went through court this week, so that's going to be dealt with this Tuesday.
They're going to send out the ballots and everything next week, and everybody will get to have their say on the matter, and good luck to you.
That's just a say. That's not a vote.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not to make it happen. That's just to say, we'll look at making it happen.
They'll look at making it happen, and if you don't give your say, will they charge you the $210 for not giving your say?
I don't know, Matt. I don't know if that can be challenged in a high court, whether or not you're obliged to vote on that. Because maybe it goes against your religious principles.
Well, then maybe you have to put on the ballot paper, against my religious principles, I cannot give you an opinion one way or the other.
Comes back to being a decent person again, doesn't it?
I guess so. But we will see. That's a lot of that's going on, but that's in my opinion, with what else is going on in the world right now, quite irrelevant. There's a lot more things out there that we need to concentrate on beside a marriage plebiscite in a country of 24 million people with a bureaucracy that says it should be about 75 million people on the ass end of the world with no actual resources for their own human beings because they're sending them all overseas, and should be having a food basket, as you said earlier, but they don't because it's not in their best interest right now because they could possibly lose control.
And we have to take a break.
We do.
Beyond 333 D.
Hello, my name's Todd Standing. I'm the man who takes people out into the field and has them either eyewitness or live interact with a Sasquatch. Done this on multiple occasions, did it on national television with Survivor Man, and I have been amazed by the media and even internet silence. I've talked to many people about it. I've spoken with Jimmy Chilcott because what he did was incredible and amazing with the fingerprint acknowledgement of the foot dermal ridges. But even him, the man, Jimmy Chilcott, came and did the documentary, the incredible documentary, Sasquatch Meets Science. And Jimmy Chilcott came forward and said, I mean, he's a fingerprint expert, an exceptionally advanced fingerprint expert with experience fingerprinting primates, so gorillas. He came forward and said something that is very profound, and I love it when people do this. When a real expert who knows his stuff cold comes and does an analysis like Jimmy Chilcott did and says, Sasquatch, at the end of it, he comes to a conclusion, and his conclusion is definitive. Sasquatch is real. There is a primate that exists on the continent of North America that is yet undiscovered. And that's what he said, and that's the reality, and that's what he knows. Gosh, I love people like that.
Welcome back tonight to another edition of Beyond 3D. Matt. That was Todd Standing.
Okay.
Todd Standing is the equivalent of Diane Fossey, except Todd Standing doesn't study mountain gorillas.
Right.
He studies Sasquatch. And for the last 7 to 8 years, he's been extensively immersing himself into a troop of Sasquatch.
Now that would be interesting.
To the point where Les Stroud, Survivor Man, Les Stroud, who's very famous for the Survivor Man shows, went on several scientific expeditions up into the mountains of Canada with Todd Standing, and actually had a Sasquatch walk past the camp while he was asleep and come past him again, making sure he was asleep, and come closer and closer, and then sat on him. And apparently, from a lot of the documentation that I've seen that Todd Standing has put out, that this is a very common behavioural trait of a Sasquatch. When you're in their vicinity and in their territory, if you pose no immediate threat, they will come over and actually sit on you as a way of allowing you to be in their space and to gauge whether or not you're a threat. But he's been doing this now for 7 to 8 years, and he's taken PhD doctors in primatology up into the mountains of Canada and they've all come back 100% convinced. Crickets?
No, not crickets. I'm just thinking. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. There is, I forget the author's name. I'll put it up on the Facebook page, but there was a book about, they would call it 411 information. And what would happen is, they would say 1.5 or so million people a year go missing in national parks in North America, well, in the United States, basically, never to be seen or heard from again. They can't even find them. If you have a thing like a Sasquatch, if you have another primate, if you want to call them primates, they might not be primates, they might be well advanced of human.
Well, they're actually talking possibility of interdimensional.
That's the whole thing. It could be well advanced of here. But if you have a situation like that, it would make sense to me that, especially if they're interdimensional, if they don't want you to see them, you're not going to see them.
And that's what Todd Standing says. Now, there's two very, very strong school of thoughts when it comes to Sasquatch. A relation to Gigantopithecus, which is an ancient species of large gorilla hominoid, or it is linked to UFO activity, and it is a species that has been dropped off here, a very sentient, intelligent species that's been dropped off here and that survives here in hiding and can be interdimensional. Because there is a lot of UFO activity also associated with Sasquatch.
Well, dropped off here by whom?
Exactly.
What purpose?
Well, we bring things to
Is there a war going on somewhere and they are trying to save this species for some particular reason and they had to move them from one place to another? Don't know. It would be fascinating to find out. And I think what's going on now is you have people like this, and science is now getting to the point where they are actually not just dismissing out of hand anyone who talks about these things. They're actually sending people out there into the field to study, to learn, to research, and that's a really good thing. So in that regard, it's very good. When you can get a person that has advanced degrees in anthropology, has advanced degrees in all kinds of cryptozoological science type stuff, at least some people in what would, I guess you could call mainstream, would start to take it a bit more seriously. They would not in any way, shape, or form automatically dismiss it, saying, oh, you're just a whack job out there trying to make a buck.
There is more evidence pertaining to Sasquatch being interdimensional than there is it being a undiscovered primate.
I can understand the interdimensional aspect of things. It would make sense to me.
I'm going to try and put a clip up.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still available. It might have got taken down. There was a gentleman out of Ontario who would frequently go to a property up in Ontario where he knew the property owners, and he would interact with this particular Sasquatch called Nefertia. Mike, that was his name from memory. And this Nefertia, he's teaching it language, like English language, and he's learning Sasquatch language in unison, but he'll go out there in waist deep snow following tracks, pristine snow, and these tracks just stop in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere for this animal to disappear to, but all of a sudden the tracks are gone, which leads to the interdimensional part. And this gentleman also, I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, he took photos through the fly of his tent with a digital camera and captured a Sasquatch outside his tent in a landscape that wasn't there. So this whole interdimensional activity theory is starting to gain a little bit more weight to it. Hence the fact nobody can produce a body.
But as the resonance of the planet increases, as we spiritually increase and the so-called higher senses start to kick in, not just the banal, mundane senses, but their higher equivalents, we see more, we can hear more, we can feel more. therefore, a lot of times what happens is we can start to experience that bleed through from one dimension into another.
I like that bleed through.
It's what it is.
It is a bleed through.
Yeah, and so we're starting to see these things a lot more. We're starting to pick up on it a lot more. As even with the so-called smartphones that we use, they're now going to go to 5G. How's that going to connect and affect with all the stuff that's going on right now?
There's all that garbage floating around us now.
So that can have an effect, a dramatic effect on exactly what we can perceive.
Well, they can perceive, allegedly, they can perceive infrared incredibly well. So when researchers go out into the field and set up these game cameras, game camera cameras, they're avoided because of the frequency that they generate. They can easily be detected.
Well, that's the same thing. If you wanted to have a colony of some people that were advanced people and you decided you didn't want the regular mundane human beings around, you could probably set up a frequency grid around the compound or wherever you were, and they could literally keep people away. It would just get into it would just automatically make them turn and go away because the frequency was just it would not match them in any way, shape, or form.
Why can't somebody develop a little frequency generator that repels mosquitoes?
Well, they have those things out there, supposedly, allegedly.
What things?
Those things you can plug into the wall socket, and it basically keeps snakes and spiders and roaches and rats and all those lovely little creatures away from your home and sends them to your neighbor because they don't have it. So that's the kind of thing that you could look into.
Well, therefore, could they not do that with sharks as well?
I would think so.
I would have thought so too. Just a little frequency generator on the tip of your surfboard.
You would think so.
Pump out a frequency that's not conducive to great whites.
And they would hopefully stay away from you. Yeah, we'll see.
Plenty of money to be made there if you're ingenious enough to take up any of these crazy ideas.
Oh, look, everybody's doing it now on YouTube. What do? They take a certain frequency and the 528 megahertz, which is supposedly and they put it into music, and you can soothe the savage beast, so to speak.
Doesn't work
people
on
are doing
me.
that. Doesn't work on you?
No.
Well, it's good for meditation and things like that. So if you can do those kinds of things and they can have a dramatic effect on you, it's just a matter of getting out, researching, experimenting with the different frequencies in certain areas and finding out how the flora and fauna react to the frequencies you're transmitting. That's all you have to do.
You think it'd be one of those ideas where you could just take it out into the middle of Africa as well? Line frequency repeller. There's many different uses for it. I mean, the army uses it, frequency weapons.
But why would you need a lion repeller? You're probably in the territory. You shouldn't even be in their territory.
I was thinking, imagine if you're some National Geographic photographer.
Oh, well, yeah.
You know?
National Geographic.
Why are you looking like that? You're so ho-hum.
Yeah, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I'm like, leave them alone. Let them have their space.
Yeah, but National Geographic do a lot of awesome stuff. I mean, there's, 3 white rhinos left in the world?
Well, they can make people aware of that, okay, fair enough. But in general terms, don't get in there. And it's like what they've done, bad correlation, but it's like what they've done on Mount Everest. You go to Base Camp Everest, it looks like you're in the shanty town in the middle of Mumbai.
Yeah.
They've wrecked it.
Yes.
You don't want that. Yeah.
Rubbish.
You don't want that situation. You want to keep the area as pristine as humanly possible. But sometimes that means staying out of the area.
But that's tourism.
Yeah, but they have, especially in Botswana and the Okavango Delta and everything like that, they have really good tour guides and places that you can go to, and they do it in such a way where you're not leaving a large footprint.
Yeah.
And it costs a heck of a lot more, but at least in those kind of situations, you get to see what you want to see, and at the same time, you're not interfering too much with the natural environment for the animals that are out there. So hopefully they will be able to remember that, and remember that's the only way we can keep things pristine, because if we don't do it, the earth will do it. And that's what's going on right now with all these storms.
Now, Gerard Butler has a film coming out soon called Geo-Storm. That's frightening.
Okay.
Check out the film clip for it on YouTube. Geo-Storm.
Geo-Storm it is.
Geo-Storm. And you're writing that down.
Man.
That's nice.
I'm going to check it out.
You're going to have to carry me tonight. I'm quite sick.
You're not feeling well. Clint's not feeling well.
We're good. What else? We have to take a break. I just realised, look at the time.
Yep. We'll be back with more in a moment.
Beyond 3D.
Welcome back to this week's edition of Beyond 3D. Matt and Clint sitting here in Studio 2 at RWP 98.7, 98.3. Hopefully you're enjoying so far, and we have a few more things to go through this Saturday evening. So, Clint.
Yo. Present
and accounted for. Whole lot of interesting things going on in ufology this past week. They're going into Egypt again and trying to find out what's actually going on there, and are now looking at the Sphinx, believing that it actually was an alien landing point.
Okay. Because of the back. The back's very, very flat on the Sphinx.
Yeah.
Very flat and very long.
And I'll put up a picture showing the back of it. Now, when you look at the Sphinx, and we've said this a few years ago on the show, when you're looking at the Sphinx, do not think what you are seeing is the way it was back then. It's almost like looking at a house that has been renovated. Well, certain parts remain.
It didn't used to have the head it did.
Yeah. You can see when you're there that it looks like somebody put it all together like a Lego, but they had to use Legos from different years or something like that. And you can see that it doesn't all quite fit, but they did the best that they possibly could. So they have found papyrus that have drawings on them depicting the Sphinx as a landing platform for UFOs back in the day. And the day was about, in my opinion, at least 10,000 years ago. And I thought that was very, very interesting to look at. They also saying about the Sphinx that there was an archway around where the tail would be, and they had to fill that in again. So they found some interesting things there as well. And they are starting to bring up the fact again that the buildings, whether it be the Sphinx or whether it be the Great Pyramid, etc., where they used harmonic resonance to move the stones into place.
Our very first show, or second show we ever did. If you're interested, go back through the podcasts, everybody, which will be coming out in 3 more shows' time. We spoke to Erich von Daniken.
We did.
About that. Exactly.
Well, let's come around again.
Do you want me to play it again?
Interesting.
I can play it now if you want.
Good idea.
Do you want to play it now?
Yep.
Do you want to? You seriously want to play it?
Absolutely.
Hang on, I've got to find it. I actually don't have it here. Yeah, I do have it here. Hang on. Okay, no, I've got it. Here it is. Here's Erich von Daniken and yourself and myself. And Steve Myers.
And Steve Myers as well.
Talking to Erich von Daniken about ancient aliens.
Beyond 3D.
It is a privilege for us at Beyond 3D to be able to talk to this next gentleman who is considered the grandfather of ancient alien studies, amongst other things. He has written many, many books over the years, including Chariots of the Gods. And welcome back to Australia to Mr. Erich von Daniken. So, Erich, it is great to talk to you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back in Australia, finally.
How long has it been?
Well, I guess at least 15 years.
Oh, that long.
That's a while. That is a while. Anyway, Erich, you are here on the Ancient Astronauts Tour.
You know, our ancestors created gigantic buildings, for example, temples and pyramids and whatever. And it is not my belief that extraterrestrials created these temples. It was always the humans who did it. My question was, why? What was the reason? What was the purpose? Why did humans take these gigantic works? And the reason is always, well, because of the gods. Okay, which gods? Now, the natural explanation is, well, the gods in nature. You know, our ancestors, Stone Age people, they admired the sun or the moon. They were afraid of an earthquake or of lightning. So they were afraid of natural forces. And that's how they admired the gods. That's okay so far. But these gods I'm talking about, they gave information to us. And in some case, scientific information. For example, concerning mathematics, concerning astronomy, etc. So the difference between the natural gods and the so-called gods from outer space is they were talking. Information was given to the humans. And that's why I say they were extraterrestrials. Our ancestors simply could not understand it.
Erich, I'm curious. I'm assuming you're familiar with the work of Zecharia Sitchin.
Of course, we know each other very well.
Oh, fantastic. Do you subscribe to his ideas of the Anunnaki? Does that sit in well with how you see things?
More or less, yes. What I do not agree with Zecharia Sitchin is the story of the 12th planet. There might be that we have some little planets or planets-like things in our solar system, but not the 12th planet which surrounds the sun in 3,600 years. So in this story, I don't agree with Zecharia Sitchin. Right. In the rest, I absolutely agree with Anunnaki and all. We were slaves, we were misused and misleaded by the extraterrestrials some thousands of years ago.
Yes, because that story sits very nicely with a lot of the things you've presented over the years in your own work, doesn't it?
That's correct, yes.
Excellent. Hey, Erich, it's Clint here. I have a question in regards to the Great Pyramid of Cheops, if you're able to talk about that.
Yes, of course.
It's been calculated that the Great Pyramid of Cheops in Egypt required one stacked block to be laid every couple of seconds around the clock in order to support the theory it was built by slaves over its 20 years of construction. What are your thoughts on the use of such things like sonic levitation as a construction tool in order to complete such technical and intricate jigsaw puzzle?
You see, I'm in contradiction here with Egyptologists.
Yep.
They tell us that the Great Pyramid was constructed by the Pharaoh of Cheops.
Yep.
Cheops is more or less 4,500 years in the past from now on. But Cheops' father, Snorfu, was a Stone Age man. They came out directly by Stone Age. Now, in the last years, inside the pyramid, many new shafts and rooms have been detected, also under the pyramid. By the way, I show these shafts and rooms in my speech. I have the pictures of all these things. But now that means the planning is becoming more complicated. You see, the planning means engineering. You have to plan a pyramid with many different shafts and rooms inside and under the pyramid, and you have to plan this before you start the building. Now, as I said, Snorfu, Cheops' father, was a Stone Age man. So the engineering, the planning is not there at Cheops' times. Of course, the humans did move these blocks somehow, but the planning, the engineering knowledge came from outside. And here again, you know, there are old Arabian writers which no one knows in the Western world. For example, Ibrahim Abdul Makrisi or Al-Mas'udi, they all tell us that the Great Pyramid was in reality constructed before the Great Flood, and they even say it was made by a king with the name of Saurid. And they say Saurid is the same personality which the Hebrew community call Enoch. Now, Enoch again, that was before the Great Flood. Enoch was the seventh patriarch before the Great Flood. He was in contact with extraterrestrials. They brought him up to a mother spaceship. Enoch describes all this in the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is not part of the Bible. The Book of Enoch comes from the Ethiopian church. So all this is described. Enoch learns the language of the extraterrestrials. He teaches the human, and they gave him the plans, the engineering knowledge to construct the pyramid, because they say inside the Great Pyramid is all the knowledge of Enoch, all the books which the extraterrestrials have dictated him. So it should be all inside the pyramid, and the order was make a construction which is strong enough to survive the Great Flood. The pyramid was made before the Great Flood. So all this knowledge is contradicting our archaeological knowledge, where they believe it was made by Cheops. I think it is not possible just because of the planning. The engineering work cannot be done at Cheops' time.
Of late, being that you are constantly working and you are constantly exploring, researching out there, can you share with us any little tidbit, any little bit of information that you've recently discovered in the last 3 months that has actually astounded you?
Well, the newest discovery is always under the Great Pyramid. Again, I have to refer to Herodotus, the Greek historian, 450 BC. He also told us that under the Great Pyramid there is a lake, a sea, and in the sea there is a sarcophagus covered by water. Now, among archaeologists, they said this is all rubbish, this is impossible. There cannot be a sea near the pyramid. In the meantime, the sea has been discovered and found. Of course, I was down there with my people and my camera, and I will show it. So Herodotus was right at that time. And the other stuff is Nazca in Peru. You know this desert with these gigantic lines. There always new things are discovered, new figures and new mathematical forms which were not known before because they are in the nearby mountains near Nazca. And what I just heard yesterday, they even discovered a pyramid now near Nazca, but it's not archaeologically discovered. They simply know that there is a pyramid in the ground.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I greatly appreciate the time that you've given us on Beyond 3D. So from myself and from Clint and from Steve, we thank you. We welcome you to Australia, and we hope that every success happens for you during this tour. So Erich von Daniken, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for being your guest with you. Thank you for the show. Bye-bye. Ciao.
Beyond 3D.
Now, going back, that was about 3 years ago. Now, when you think of that and what's coming forward...
I sounded so young and full of hope.
Yeah, did you? When you think of that and you're going forward from that point in time, the Sphinx is the area where the Sphinx and the Great Pyramids are. If you want to know what that area looked like when they were built at their height, take a look at what Angkor Wat now looks like in the jungles of Laos and Cambodia and that area.
And they had to do seismic surveying on that, didn't they? And found out that it was way bigger
than anybody could possibly imagine. But this is the thing that was, when you look at the clothing worn in the hieroglyphs by the Egyptians, they were not dressed for the desert. They were dressed for a more tropical climate. So water levels are different. There were 2 Nile rivers. There was one to the west of the Giza Plateau as well. There were cities to the north along the Mediterranean. There was a lot going on back then, but there was a shift, and the shift changed a lot of the area, and all of a sudden, to me, what it seems like is when desert moves in that regard, what you have is you have what they call, what we're dealing with today, climate change. So once again, climate change rears its ugly head, and we're having a lot of discussion these days about whether or not it is valid or not valid. So when you look at Giza, when you look at the Sphinx, when you look at the way it was built, when you look at the refurbishments that have been done, when you take a look at the pyramids and you line them up with the belt of Orion, so Al-Nilam, Al-Nitak, and Mintaka, those 3 stars in Orion's belt, totally correspond with the Giza Plateau and the pyramids. It gives you a very interesting scenario that is going on here.
Absolutely no coincidence whatsoever.
None.
And I'll tell you another gentleman, if anybody at home is playing along and wanting to Google, Graham Hancock.
Yes,
that absolutely. Is a gentleman who has written many books like Magicians of the Gods.
Yes, absolutely, Graham Hancock. The work being done there. So we have to take a look at it this way. We're bringing up Egypt. You're bringing up the Sphinx. A little while ago, we brought up cryptozoology and Sasquatch and possible interdimensional travel. You put all of these things together, and what you are seeing is...
Bring it home, Matt.
No, what you're seeing here, literally to me, is the fact that we have been put into some kind of a bubble.
Yes.
That doesn't allow us to see the entire picture of what's going on. No. We've been compartmentalized.
It's like the ant and the horse.
We've been compartmentalized.
The ant can only see what it can see at its level, but the horse can see more because it's up higher and has a bigger view.
Or it's like the blind man trying to describe an elephant.
There's the crickets again.
Well, very simple. A blind man, if he walks up to an elephant and touches it, one party's touching it, it feels, he says it's like a wall. Another party says it's like a tree trunk, and another party says it's like a rope.
And another party goes, "Is my pants down?"
That's the way. And so, and so when you have a situation like that, you can't see the entire picture. But if you can step back far enough, and if you have the sight, you can see everything that is going on.
And that's what's happening now, yes? We're
Yes.
just starting to pull back a little bit further and a little bit further and seeing more and more pieces of the jigsaw.
You are. And what's happening, and the reason I believe this is happening is because in spite of ourselves, we're spiritually evolving. The earth is saying, all right, I'm tired of waiting for you guys. Let's boost the signal a bit. And people are starting to get really terrified at the fact that they're seeing things that they're seeing and hearing things that they're hearing.
Yeah, like this guy.
Bing, bing, bong, bong, total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong. You know what that is, right?
Bing, bing, bong, bong.
That's Colt 45.
Oh, good Lord.
Because you'd be in jail.
Yaha, 45 Colt.
That guy, I'm sorry, folks. Look, we make fun of him a lot, but let me explain something to you, and this is from experience.
Bing, bing, bong, bong.
Bing, bing, bong, bong, total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong. You know what that is, right?
That man deals, and I'm saying this seriously, and it's not benevolent, it is malevolent. He deals on multiple levels.
Oh, no, you've mentioned that before.
I'm sorry, you guys. He's not just here, he's other places as well. So just allow for the fact that he's doing the same thing there as well. Now, I heard something very interesting, that meaning that you brought up Colt 45 malt liquor.
Because you'd be in jail.
Yaha, 45 Colt.
Because you'd be in
Nikola
jail.
Tesla. Nikola Tesla.
Do it again.
Nikola Tesla. Story goes, died a pauper, penniless,
In a hotel in New
in a
York.
hotel in New York. Okay.
Jinx.
Who was the person that found Nikola Tesla dead in his hotel room and was in there with all of his paperwork, all of the things that he held dear to him, all of the technologies that he came up with? Who was the first person to find him?
I'm going to say, based on what I believe was the FBI.
I'm talking about a specific man
Come on, tell me.
who went into the room
Tell me.
and found him.
Tell me.
Think about it. You've been talking about a member of his family for a very long time now.
I'm pretty sick tonight, Matt. I'm pretty sick tonight. The grey matters. I'm on autopilot.
Okay.
Come on. Well, maybe somebody at home can tell us who it is.
Yeah, well, I think a few people out there might know exactly who it is. But it was a man that went by the name of John G. Trump, who was an engineer, an inventor, and a physicist. So you take the fact that 45's uncle was the first person in that room when Tesla died back in about 1943-ish or something around there. I'm not sure of the year, but I'll put it up on the page, on the Facebook page. Take the fact that he was in that situation. Take the fact, and all of a sudden you start to go, wait a minute.
Wait a minute. I know the government acquired a lot of his patents and seized a lot of his prototypes, but I did not know that the Führer, Colt 45 Führer,
Yeah. There you go.
his uncle was the
His
first one in
uncle.
there. There you
Yeah.
go. I learn something new every day.
So you have a situation
Hang on a
where...
second. Can we just back up the truck? The penny just dropped. Did you say he was a physicist?
Yes.
What happened to that family tree?
Very good question. It's very simple. One brother is an engineer and a physicist. One brother is a pimp.
Yeah. Okay. Say no more. Say no more.
She's still very beautiful. I moved on her, actually. You know, she was down in Palm Beach. I moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it.
Whoa.
I did try and and I moved on her very heavily. I moved on her like a bitch. I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just like, I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the
It has nothing to do with... But this is the...
Alleged pimp.
Yeah, right. So that's... A lot of people don't necessarily know that kind of information, but when you put that information together, all of a sudden you start saying, wait a minute, what's going on
These
here?
aren't conspiracies. This is an actual fact.
That's a fact.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
It has nothing to do with conspiracy
No.
whatsoever.
Because somebody at home would be right now rolling their eyes, going, "Oh, that's a conspiracy."
No. That's an absolute fact. And the fact of the matter also is that how do you know? He could have gotten some interesting technologies out of there before any Federal Bureau of Investigation would have even shown up. You never know. There are Tesla machines all over the world right now that are hidden.
And I know that you actually know where there is one.
Yes, I do, but I'm not getting into that.
I'm not getting into that either.
But the fact of the matter,
safe,
yes,
Matthew
thank you
Adams.
very much.
You don't need to catch a fast-moving bullet.
Nope, no thank you. So these are the things I think that are going on, and when you learn this, you start saying all this stuff starts clicking into place.
I really don't want to do this show by myself.
But yeah, you're not going to have to. Don't worry about it.
Who else am I going to argue with?
Steve will help you
Just
if you
me?
need to.
Of course, Steve will. Hello, Steve. He's laughing. I know he's at home laughing along right now.
But yeah, so when you look at that and you say, wait a minute, what else is possibly going on here? Because it's these same families, these same groups of people that are doing all of this skullduggery planet-wide.
Skullduggery. I'm glad you mentioned skulls.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Papa Bush.
Yes.
Skull and bones.
Oh, that. Yeah, true. True.
All those barrels of oil he's acquired over the years.
That's another family that does the exact same thing. So these are the things that are going on. And so when you look at the fact that you have 45 in the White House, and in my opinion, it'll only be for 4 years, what's he doing really?
Feathering his own nest.
Yes.
You know what? I've got a clip here. I'm going to play this now because it's pertinent to what you're talking about. Let me find it. Hang on. There we go. Bill Clinton with George Bush Jr. Being interviewed about what it takes to be a president, and have a listen between the lines. They are talking about Trump, what not to do. Have a listen to this.
So as you look, both of you look back on your presidency, you both served 8 years, and as I tried to say earlier, if somebody wants to be president of the United States, is the quality that is most important hard work, intelligence, optimism, luck? What do you think it takes for somebody who says, I want to be president, I want to be like you, I want to be like you?
Humility. I think it's really important to know what you don't know and listen to people who do know what you don't know.
I also think you have to begin with the end in mind. That is, you have to say, but why in the heck are you running? If you want to be president, realize it's about the people, not about you. And when it's over, and that's what a lot of these people who are real arrogant in office, they forget. Time passes, and it passes more quickly than you know. You want to be able to say, people are better off, kids had a better future, things were coming together. You don't want to say, God, look at all the people I beat, or the people I worked over. I think the most important thing is to be humble, to listen, to realize everybody's got a story.
Humility.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee. Bing, bing, bong, bong, total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong. You know what that is, right?
Bing, bing, bong, bong.
Yeah.
Pretty much they summed it up, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I mean, that's what it's all about. You have to have, and it's not just to be a president, you have to have it in life. Humility is a very important, compassion and humility are very important.
He has none.
Pertinent.
He has none.
Yeah, I know. Well, he has to have it for someone besides himself, you would think.
We have to take a break.
We will.
Beyond 3D.
Welcome back tonight to another edition of Beyond 3D. Matt?
You?
Well, you're scribbling over there.
No, I'm just doodling.
Nice.
Doodling. Yeah, I'm very disappointed with what was happening in the United States around certain programs, but at the same time, I think we've all reached the point where nothing should surprise us anymore. So we just have to watch what happens, and hopefully justice will prevail and everything will come out properly. You really can't do anything more about that. We are dealing right now, and we'll have to just wait till we're on the other side of it, with a lot of different things like the weather systems, which really are overpowering the northern hemisphere right now. And it's not just the Caribbean; it's also the typhoon season over in Northeast and Southeast Asia as well.
Can I just throw this into the mix as well? Fukushima is still vomiting radiation by the Olympic swimming pool load by the hour every day still. Now, with all the storms and the typhoons going around, don't tell me that radiation isn't being spread faster and further afield.
No, it is. Without a doubt it is. And that's the problem. Houston, Texas, if you've never been there, guys, Houston, Texas is as flat as you can possibly get. in any kind of topography on the Earth. There are no hills. It's just ridiculous. And that's why the water is staying as long as it did.
I saw a roller coaster poking its head out, like the tracks, out of a sea of water.
Yeah.
Obviously, a sea of water. What else would a sea of water be? This roller coaster just... What's the word I'm looking for, man? I can't think.
Top of the hill?
Just the tracks are actually
protruding out.
Thank you. Protruding is the word I was looking for. I'm so sick tonight. The roller coaster was protruding out of the water. There was nothing else around.
Yeah.
So it looked so incredibly surreal.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what... I look at it and I just find it absolutely amazing. If you guys want to take a look at Secure Team 10, he has a couple of good videos up about some interesting, they call it interesting up there, but back in a couple of years ago, I think, in Sydney, storms would roll in and you would get these clip-like walls of cloud coming
Giant
in.
black grey clouds coming in over the ocean.
And it would look like some kind of a building or a UFO was coming in. And this is now starting to happen in the southeastern United States as well. And they're not necessarily as used to it. So they're looking at it like, it's very ominous warnings coming up and things like that.
No, but let's just pull out of the Paris Climate Accord.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, good on you, Trumpy.
That's the way. But that's the thing I think that's bugging me this week the most. The other stuff, it'll ultimately settle out there. They're talking about this DACA program.
That's with kids, though.
It's not with... Well, they're in their 20s and 30s now.
Yeah, but then they were brought there as children against their will and have grown up there.
It wasn't against their will. They went with their parents. But the fact of the matter is...
Hang on a minute. What child gets to say to their parents, I don't want to go? Oh, okay, we're not going to take you then.
No,
it's
they
against the
went.
will.
But no, it's not a problem. It'll ultimately get fixed. I'm not too worried about that kind of stuff. And I think it's really what it's done is it's brought out some really interesting scenarios for people. And so no matter where in the world you are, there are people. And there's that I forget who did the adage, they came for the Jews and I didn't say anything, and then they came for there was a few Hispanic groups that were doing that because they weren't being bothered and they were still basically trying to get their white privilege card in the United States. And so they just let everything go by and let everything go by, and more went by. And now all of a sudden something that affected their family came around.
Instead of rallying and helping the other minorities.
No, they did nothing. And they just said, well, this is not bothering us. But now that it's bothering them, now they're all upset. And most of the other minorities are saying, yeah, well, tough. You should have known this was ultimately going to happen. So I don't worry about that kind of stuff because Congress, laws can be put in place to help those people out. It really isn't that difficult, although they try to make it sound like it is. And the reason it is, it's just the same here in Australia. The reason it's difficult is because you have politicians that try to put riders onto everything that goes through. So now what they're saying is, yes, it would be very easy, being that these people are well investigated and well documented, that they know each and every one of them, all of the information. It would be quite simple to just say, what we are now going to do is we are making you all permanent residents with the stipulation that it is specifically for you. It is not for a spouse. It is not for a parent or a grandparent or anything along those lines. It is specifically for you.
That'd work.
Of course it would work, which is why they won't do it. What they want to be able to do is they want to be able to say, well, we want to put a codicil on to build the wall, we want to put this on it, we want to attach this to it. And that is the problem that they always have with this kind of thing. If it was just a matter of how do we fix this, it's a quick fix. Every single DACA recipient, every single person on our list right now, very simple. Permanent residency for you specifically, only, exclusively, end of it. They all go in. Names go in, they're on the list, done. Everybody else go through the similar process that you would normally have to go through for any person immigrating to any country. That's it. Why won't they do it?
Because President Bing Bing Bong Bong has a wife that's a foreigner as well.
Yeah, of course. But the fact of the matter is, if they really get too deep into it and they find out she got there illegally, not legally, all of a sudden, what are they going to do? Deport her? No. So this is the thing, and I think they're going to ultimately come to that realization. So I'm not too worried about that whole situation over there. So when you look at all of that going on, when you look at what's going on weather-wise, when you look at, I think what's going on is the universe is trying to give us in this light spectrum a wake-up call.
A calibration, I'm feeling.
a big-time wake-up call. You guys have got to stop the crap, stop acting like children, get your act together, and let's move forward, or we're going to have to leave you behind or wipe you out and start all over again because you're just pathetic.
The thing is, when you look at programs like Solar Warden, where we're already out there in the galaxy, in the cosmos, we got to get it right here first before we go out, before we take our sugar, honey, ice, and tea out there.
Well, the fact of the matter is, in my opinion, we did get it right, but what tends to happen is the people that just don't want to cooperate, we say, fine, leave them there. Everybody else, vamonos, forward, let's get going. And then there are some of us that basically are observers. And even though you may not know it, a lot of us that listen to shows like this are observers, and subconsciously the signal gets sent saying, all right, no, they're not there yet. No, not quite yet. 1% of them have done it. You can start talking to them, and you just keep on going. But to me, that's what it's all about. You observe, and people are watching to see what's going to happen. And there are certain people who are here that don't want to have anything to do with any of that. They want to just have a nice life and die.
Yeah, they're the people that are going to vote against the plebiscite.
Yeah, probably. But
the flat earthers.
Oh, my goodness. Not them again. Well, the other thing was NASA.
Sorry, never a straight answer.
Yeah, never a straight answer. Put out some 10,000 photographs of the moon landings.
I'll tell you what they have been doing.
Which I thought was very interesting.
I'll tell you what they have been doing. What's the time? We're almost out of time. I can bring this up now. Did you know that allegedly, never a straight answer, have developed what they call the new VASIMR plasma engine that can allegedly reach Mars in less than 6 weeks?
That would be nice.
6 weeks.
Can it get back in 6 weeks?
Well, apparently it uses 1/10 the amount of fuel as a regular rocket.
Well, the reason they want to go to Mars is because there are certain technologies that were left there.
They're already on Mars.
Yeah,
Solar Warden program's already operating out of Mars.
All right, well, the reason NASA allegedly wants to go to Mars is because there's technologies left up there. They got most of the technologies, as you just said, from Mars. They got the ones that Saddam Hussein had in Iraq in the museums, in the basements. They went in and got all of that kind of stuff.
Pause. I know you're on a roll. Did you know an acquaintance of mine, his father led the United Nations into Iraq looking for the weapons of mass destruction. And he said there was nothing there. But he didn't say what else they went there to take.
Yes.
So one was a cover story for acquiring technology. And I've got that from the horse's mouth.
That's the way you want it. But the fact of the matter is, yeah, that's what it is. There was technologies there that they wanted, and they just had to get them. I've never understood why, when you had a situation like that, unless they were drugged out of their minds, why, if you were a person like Saddam Hussein and you had all of that information, why on earth, when they had you and you were sitting up there and everybody could be watching you live, wouldn't you just spill the beans?
Well, maybe it did. We're not privy to that.
If it were live, somebody would have seen it or recorded it. But it's the same thing with they ruined Gaddafi. They basically went into Saddam Hussein's area in Iraq. Now, he was by no stretch of the imagination a saint.
But he was way better than Kim.
Oh, heck yeah. But the fact of the matter, he was not a saint, but they had technologies. So once they get the technology, as we've said, they've gone to Mars, they've gone to the moon. I'm still of the mind that every single planet in this solar system at one point in time was inhabited.
We're almost out of time tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to try, over the next week or two, collate some information about Jupiter. Oh, I got your attention now. Look at you.
Yep.
About Jupiter being a intergalactic meeting planet. A planet where many species come to meet and negotiate trade routes. I'm going to try and find that information and try and present it in the next couple of weeks.
Beautiful. Excellent. Well, based upon that, I'd say we're about done for this week. Guys, thank you very much for listening to Beyond 3D this week. Check our Facebook page during the week. We're constantly updating and putting up different things that we find as we do our research, and hopefully you will find that useful in helping you collate in your own mind what's actually going on out there.
And I'm so sorry I'm sick this week, but I'm on the Grey Goose, so I should be back as bright as rain next week.
Try that Ciroc vodka. That's a good one.
Oh, you can't top the Goose.
You want to bet?
What's it called?
Ciroc.
How do I spell it?
C-I-R-O-C. It's French.
Okay, I'll give it a crack.
It's a nice
I only take it straight.
quintuple, what am I talking about? Quintuple distilled, 5 times distilled.
How did we get onto alcohol? I was talking about medicine.
It's Saturday night.
Saturday night, of course it is.
Medicinal purposes, always.
Don't forget to check out our Facebook page, which is Beyond, the number 3.
Hyphen.
And the letter D.
Indeed. Take care, guys. We will catch you next week with another edition of Beyond 3D.
Good night, everybody.
Just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.